Hello and welcome to another edition of Times, exclusive right here on Times Television, TTV. But the program is also live on your Facebook page, that is Times 360 Malawi. We're also live on Times Radio. My name is Wonder Msisia. The program is brought to you courtesy of Rainbow Pen. Stay tuned.
They say blood is thicker than water. Reality tells us that even family lets one down sometimes. We still have to face the harsh weather as individuals. We say Rainbow Weather Shield paint is thicker than blood. The paint endures the hottest of days, the heaviest of rains, the dustiest of seasons, and the windiest of nights. Not even the toughest molds can stand this hero of a paint. Rainbow Weather Shield, family and true friend that sees no weather. Rainbow paints. Peace of mind, part of the deal.
Welcome back. I have the pleasure of introducing to you our guest in today's edition of the program. He is Dr. Wilson Banda. He is the governor of the Reserve Bank of Malawi. Welcome, Dr. Banda.
Thank you.
I would like to thank you very much for honoring us with your presence in today's edition of the program. Dr. Banda, probably people are seeing you for the first time. I would like to know more about you. Who is Dr. Wilson T. Banda?
Okay, my full name is Wilson Toninga Banda. I joined the Reserve Bank in 1979 up to 2010. I left the bank briefly for an assignment at the World Bank. I came back in 2017 towards the end. And then I rejoined the bank last year. Apart from my work in the bank, I'm also into so many other social activities. I'm a football fan, and my team in Malawi is Silver Strikers, obviously. and my favorite team in Malawi is the netball team for the national team.
Scorchers.
Not the Scorchers, the netball team.
The Queens.
The netball team, yes. The Queens.
Yeah.
That is my favorite team.
Okay.
Globally, internationally, I'm a Man U supporter, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, indeed.
Thank you.
Now, going straight to our discussion, I wanted us to start this discussion where there are a lot of issues that have been coming from the central bank lately, where we hear that there's an audit and this audit is revealing this and is revealing that. As you've taken up the position of the governor, what do you think is the reputation of Reserve Bank as it stands today?
As I came into the institution, there was a lot of rumor, there was a lot of discussion in social media about things that were going on in the Reserve Bank. It became very important for me to ensure that rumor, those issues that were making rounds in social media, basically clarified, that we carried out an investigation to confirm whether there was any truth or lack of it. So that's why we went on to carrying out all sorts of investigations. As we stand today, I think most of the issues have been resolved. We no longer have the type of pressures, we no longer have the type of sensational news making rounds in social media that I found. I think the credibility of the institution is being restored.
One of the issues that came out was that Reserve Bank of Malawi had processed payments for the chiefs. And when it was put before the Reserve Bank of Malawi to respond to that issue, Reserve Bank of Malawi said that we should ask their accountant general. I know you issued a press statement about it, but my question is, as a bank, don't you have an oversight role to say, what are we processing? If that payment was indeed processed by the bank, what was the role of the bank in making sure that they were processing the right things?
We are a bank, and we are a bank for government. We take instructions from government through the Office of the Accountant General. For that specific transaction we are talking about, the payment of salaries and honoraria to chiefs, yes, we received an instruction from government, and it came in through Accountant General. Our role was to push those payments to commercial banks. That we did at the time that the instructions were received. The issue is that between Accountant General and the commercial banks, there was a breakdown of communication. The commercial banks were not given the details of who the recipients were at the right time. So once those details were provided, payments were made. So our role really is to push payments on instruction from government. We don't initiate any payment ourselves, and we don't provide the oversight that you are talking about. We are just a bank at the tail end of a transaction.
So it doesn't occur at times whereby you start looking at the documents and start to question it, to say, okay, should we indeed process this type of a process?
If it's a suspicious transaction, obviously we do. We would not blindly process a transaction where we know that there's something wrong, it doesn't look good, there's something suspicious. We do check. We do check with the rightful offices, the Office of the Secretary to the Treasury. I work very closely with them to avoid what happened during the Cashgate era. We are in very close contact. We monitor these things. Anything that is coming through the system that is suspicious, we pick it up, we check with the authorities. So yes, we have that responsibility. But for the normal transactions, nothing specific that is suspicious, they would normally go through. And we expect that the Accountant General would be contacting the commercial banks to provide details of the beneficiaries. We are a central bank, we just provide the resources to commercial banks to effect those payments.
I'm glad you raised the issue of the Cashgate, because I think this has been in the mind of people to say, would Cashgate ever happen again? Under your watch, what is it that you're doing to ensure that the public funds that people, these are people, Malawian taxes, that they secure, that nothing of that nature will ever happen again?
Okay.
Under your watch, probably.
Yeah, the system has now moved on in a number of ways. It has become safer. We have recently introduced what we call EFT, electronic funds transfer. That is an arrangement where there's minimal intervention by anybody along the path. A government or a minister is going to issue an instruction. That instruction will be carried through the system to the beneficiary bank, and the beneficiary gets paid. That way we'll have a full audit trail. We know who issued the instruction, we'll know who picked up the resources. And if the instruction is outside the limits that are allowable, the system will not process it. So the system is now, I think, a little more foolproof than was the situation before. Having said that, anything that is not normal in terms of payments, in terms of the frequency of those payments, will easily be picked up by the system. And our officers in the bank would raise those issues with myself, and I'll take it up with authorities in government. So yes, I don't think that is going to happen during my time.
Okay, you've spoken about systems here. We're talking about information technology, IT systems and all that. When you appeared before the Committee of Parliament, you admitted that there was a rise in digital fraud.
Yes.
By financial institutions as a result of, I think, these systems that we're talking about. What is it that you're doing as a central bank to make sure that we're trying to end this?
Fraud is not perpetrated really by the institutions themselves. It's individuals that are taking advantage of the weaknesses in the systems. When I appeared before Parliament, that issue was raised. And if you recall, the example was given of where perpetrators of this fraud were actually stationed in some prisons in Zomba. They were using cell phones basically to dupe people. They knew how the system operates. They knew how vulnerable people are. They basically took advantage. So it is not really so much of a responsibility of the central bank as it is a responsibility of law enforcement agencies. This is more an issue of police to ensure that people are not duped, to ensure that the people that are in prisons are not abusing the system to cheat people. It's an issue that MACRA has to address because they're basically using the platforms that are provided by our institutions, but they go through an environment that is regulated by MACRA. So I would say it's more of a MACRA issue. Yes, the banks are involved, but it's an issue that can better be handled, managed by MACRA and the law enforcement, and this would be the police.
Yeah. As central bank, you're the regulator of these commercial banks. Don't you think that at the stage that we're in now, where people are taking advantage of these digital platforms to defraud others, maybe that should also form part of the regulation? To say when you are regulating these commercial banks, you should also look how secure are these systems?
Well, I've said MACRA, but yes, we have a role. We are at the center of the national payments systems. If it's to do with payments, yes, it is our responsibility. But where there is this fraud perpetrated by criminals sitting somewhere in a prison in Zomba, that is law enforcement. And MACRA does monitor these telephones or cell phones and the like. So they should be playing a greater role.
Moving away from that, there has been a belief, I must say, of late that Reserve Bank of Malawi has become heavily politicized. Mm-hmm. Probably people are looking at your predecessor that he was probably involved in so many issues. Would you say that you receive some political pressure in operating, in doing your day-to-day job as the governor?
Let me take a step back. I joined the bank last year in July, in July 2020. Previously, I worked for the World Bank for something like 8 years. And before that, I worked for the Reserve Bank for something like 31 years. So I've built my career around central banking. I'm a career central bank economist. I come back this time around. I move straight into a field that I'm fairly familiar with. So I'm moving in professionally. When the president invited me to take up this position, he looked at me more from a professional standpoint that I could add value to his administration by managing a central bank. So my appointment, yes, it was a political appointment, of course, confirmed by Parliament. Confirmation was done by Parliament, but they looked more at what I could add by way of my technical skills, my professional experience, etc. So professionally, I qualified to be in a position that I currently hold. My predecessor or others may have been appointed maybe on the same basis or for the same reasons. I'm not too sure. But since I've been here, I think I've operated professionally. I don't get any political pressure. The time the president offered me this job, when I went to see him, he said to me, "Wilson, I want you to take up this position in the bank. Two things that you have to observe. One, you will be operating within the law. Follow the law, follow the rule of law. I should not do anything outside the law. So everything that I do here has to be within the law." That's the first thing. The second thing he said, I'm appointing you to that position to serve the people of Malawi. I am a servant of the people of Malawi, and therefore I will not be shifted or moved by any political whims. Yes, there will be temptation for politicians and others to try to influence a decision here and there, but definitely since I've been in this office with the full support of the president, I've operated professionally.
So since you've been in this office, apart from the president, you haven't received any political pressure from anyone?
No.
And even if it comes, what would you like to say to those that may even want, they're just thinking to say, well, probably I might go and ask for a favor here or there?
I report to the president. And so in terms of my work, if I've got any issue, if there are any issues coming from the system or anywhere, and if it's something I cannot handle, I need guidance, I go to the president. I work very closely with the Minister of Finance. If there are issues that I need his advice, his guidance, his support, I go to the Minister of Finance. But apart from those offices, I really have very little to do with other offices. Yes, Minister of Trade, yes, Minister of Industry, yes, I do work with them. But on a day-to-day basis, I work more with the Minister of Finance. In terms of political pressure from any other minister or any other political side, no, I don't. I've not experienced it yet. Because the president was very clear when he issued instructions. And these instructions were that I should follow the law.
Dr. Banda, the IMF were in the country recently. They were looking at the extended credit facility, which was suspended when this new administration came into power. They say there were a lot of irregularities that they were trying to clean up. Now, as we're speaking now, that process is at standstill. We don't know whether we're going to get a yes or a no. And because of that, there's about $300 million that is hanging elsewhere from the World Bank. We can't access that. How is that affecting our forex and our economy in general, Doctor?
Okay, currently as a central bank, we're sitting on 2.4 months of import cover. Commercial.
Is that okay?
No, it's the minimum that we should be sitting on is about 3 months. So this is definitely below the 3 months. But when you add the 1.5 months of import cover from the commercial banks, it takes us just over that bar. So as a country, we would be sitting on something like 3.9 months of import cover. But the trick here is that most of the foreign currency that is on account of the private sector is in FCDAs that are held by foreign missions, exporters, and NGOs, right? For foreign missions, especially embassies, that can't be touched. NGOs and the like, yes and no, because that is their money. For exporters, what we've basically said is about 30% should be released to the market, right?
Yes.
30% should be released to the market in order to improve the supply of foreign currency. And given the pressures that we're currently facing, we think that would do with the money that the World Bank and other donors can provide to this economy. To answer your question, yes, we definitely need donor support. Yes, we need a program with the IMF, because it's only a program with the IMF that does provide the signal to donors and others to release support for the country.
So until they say yes, we're not going to access this other. What are we doing now to make sure that we don't reach critical stages whereby we're saying at 2.4, weight of import cover is still below the 3 that is required for us, and the tobacco, the sales for tobacco this year, they haven't provided us the much needed forex. Where are we getting our forex, Doctor?
Oh, okay, fine. From tobacco, if you recall, the final figure was 197 million that came out of the auction floors.
Yes.
Out of that 197 million, very little ended up in our banking system for us to use. The vast majority of that money, I think over 60-70%, went back to tobacco merchants. And that is a problem for us. Given that we have that scarcity of the foreign currency, we are now under pressure to look for accommodation. The first line was really to go back to foreign currency FCDs, as we call them. And that's when we asked for that 30%. It was essentially to increase the supply of foreign currency, as I said. But in the event that all else fails, as a central bank, we can get short-term accommodation. We can get short-term facilities from regional banks and international banks. That we can do in the process of managing
What are these?
our foreign.
What are these short terms that you're talking about?
It's just like getting maybe a swap, as we call it, a swap transaction, where we get foreign currency amounts, and then we issue kwacha to the bank that has given us the foreign currency. That bank would invest the kwacha in the local market until such a time that this swap matures. Usually these are 90 days, at times maybe 6 months, and maybe exceptionally they can go up to 1 year. But mostly this would be short term. That does provide liquidity in the short term. For the medium to longer term, we are looking at building up capacity in the economy. Using EDF, we've started buying gold. The amounts are very little, nothing to write home about, but we're just starting. We're buying gold. We hope that in time we're going to build the stocks, and this will have an impact on foreign currency. That's one. Two, through EDF again, we're supporting efforts to diversify our export base. Currently, the country relies heavily on tobacco, tea, and sugar. We think that we need to go beyond those. We need to go into non-traditional exports. For the first time, the country will be exporting quite a sizable amount of maize and maize products to South Sudan. We think that's a good move. And we're looking at expanding that market in South Sudan, but also go into other countries in the region that would require imports from Malawi. So yes, we're aggressively looking at expanding our export base, and we think that EDF is doing a good job. We're working very closely with the Minister of Trade, and we're working very closely with the Minister of Agriculture. Jointly, we think that we can make a difference. But mining is also an option for this country. Yes, we have relied on agriculture all these years, but we think there's life beyond agriculture, and that life is in mining, and we think we're going to make it big.
Dr. Banda, you talk about us now trying to look at other options like expanding our export base. As we're thinking of what that could be, you've also spoken about mining. Meanwhile, we still have that appetite for us to import. I'm looking at fuel. We need dollars. We need forex. I'm looking at AIP. That is just going to happen anytime soon if it hasn't started. It also requires a lot of forex. How do we balance the two that we don't have much as I speak? Should people be worried that these are going to be affected? These are key products in terms of...
for strategic commodities, for strategic imports, you mentioned fuel, you mentioned AIP. I should add medicines for hospitals. Those are very strategic. We will provide foreign currency. Our commercial banks are there to support us, and we have capacity as of now to continue providing those. So Malawians should not really be worried about foreign currency not being available to cover fuel imports, to provide for AIP. For AIP, that is a flagship kind of promise or a deliverable to the economy. That is going to be supported. We cannot downplay the importance of Ministry of Health and their requirements. Those will be provided. So we will have foreign currency covered to cover all those, even if it means trying to get some short-term accommodation from elsewhere. What might probably suffer if we don't get that much foreign currency in the short term are probably these other imports.
Yeah,
but definitely
that's what I wanted to ask, to say, while we are prioritizing these three that you've mentioned, AIP, medicine, and the fuel, how about, like, I'm just a small-scale business person, I'm trying to order something from elsewhere, I go to the banks and they tell me that I have to wait and wait and wait. Those are going to be affected, and do we have a solution that is in sight as I speak to you now to say, okay, maybe they might only be affected for a couple of months, but at least there's something that's coming our way?
Okay, I mentioned the initiatives we are putting in place. In the short term, we are going to get some facilities to support us. In the medium to longer term, those are the things I told you about: export diversification, etc. That should improve the supply of foreign currencies. So for the small man that imports stuff for business,
I want to buy a car, for example.
Yeah.
So I want to use some dollars to bring my second-hand car from wherever it's coming from.
The banks will still be there. The sources of foreign currency will still be there, and we are hoping that there will be no shock to the system that is going to disrupt people's lives. But as a central bank, it is our responsibility to manage foreign reserves. And managing foreign reserves will mean that providing foreign currency to the market, to the economy when it is needed. So yeah, so we'll be working with commercial banks to ensure that we don't have those shocks.
This question that I asked, I know it was a long question, you've answered it, but the second part of my question was to say, how does then that affect our economy as a whole? Because we only looked at the forex side of it. Does that affect the ECF? Does that affect our economy?
Yeah, again, the ECF does trigger donor support. If we don't get the donor support, it means that the supply of foreign currency in the system is going to be affected. If the foreign currency supply is affected, obviously businesses may not have the type of foreign currency they require in the amounts at the time they're required. So it's going to affect the businesses. So yes, ECF becomes important in order to ensure that definitely in the short term, donors do come in to give us the support.
When you look at everything that the IMF is trying to be happy with for us to access ECF, do you see it happening?
I think we are doing the right things. I think we are addressing the issues. I don't look at it more as an IMF program. It's our program.
Yes.
We should be doing the right things for our country.
Access, yes.
Yes. Short term, it will be painful. I guess that's the route we have to take and accept. But long term is going to benefit the country. The IMF will only come in to support us, but the program should be born and supported by Malawians. It's something that should be of our making, something that comes out of us.
So your answer is yes. Eventually we are going to have ECF back.
Yes, of course. I mean, otherwise I won't be in this office. Yeah, I won't be in this office. I mean, it is my job, it is the job of the Minister of Finance to make sure that the country's relations with these international institutions is restored. And we're doing the right thing. I'm working very closely with the Minister of Finance to address the issues that are of concern to everybody. Issues of fiscal consolidation, as they call it, issues of foreign currency reserves. Yes, we're addressing those.
You're watching Times, exclusive on Times Television, TV, and Times 360 Malawi. That is our Facebook page, but the program is also live on Times Radio. My guest in today's edition of the program is Dr. Wilson Banda. He is the governor of the Reserve Bank of Malawi. We'll take a short break, and remember, the program is brought to you courtesy of Rainbow Paints. Stay tuned.
How often do you wash your favorite clothes? 52 times a year? How long do you wear them before they fade away? 3, 4 years? Imagine a paint with washability capabilities of up to 10,000 scrubs during its life. Imagine a paint that maintains its luster for over 7 years. Imagine a paint with a velvet finish and water resistance. Stop imagining, because Rainbow Acrylic Sheen does it all and beyond. An all-time hero for interior and exterior finishing that brings smiles to thousands of families and contractors. Rainbow Paints. Peace of mind. Part of the deal.
Welcome back. You're watching Times exclusive on Times Television, TTV, Times 360 Malawi Facebook page, but also on Times Radio. My guest in today's edition of the program is Dr. Wilson Banda. He is the governor of the Reserve Bank of Malawi. Welcome back, Dr. Banda.
Thank you. Thank you.
Before the break, we spoke about many issues, including the forex and our economy, and you kept on telling us about the EDF buying gold and all that. But it was reported that EDF did not have a license. And people were saying, how? And this is the company that is wholly owned by the Reserve Bank of Malawi. The regulator itself is running a company without a license. What is happening, doctor?
Update. EDF does have a license as we discuss today. They have a license.
But it didn't have.
I'll take you back. When EDF was set up in 2012, that time there was no requirement for licensing by the central bank. They were licensed by other institutions of government. They were set up as a company, but they were not licensed and regulated by the central bank because the law at that time did not require such. That law only became effective in 2018. That required these financial institutions to be registered and regulated by the central bank. That was in 2018. The first institution to go for licensing after the enactment of that law was, I think, National Bank, Development Bank. Then after that came Mike. They were also licensed. The third institution to be licensed is now EDF. They've since been licensed. So the requirement for licensing only kicked in 2018. Between 2018 and now, what had kind of delayed the processing of a license for EDF were a number of things that we picked along the way. And this included issues of capitalization. For a financial institution to be registered, I think you need something like $50 million equivalent in Malawi kwacha. To get that type of capitalization was an uphill. They required a couple of other smaller things here and there. The issues of governance structure had to be decided upon, and the appointment of the board and the people on the board, etc. That has all been done now. So yes,
maybe my issue is from 2018 you've given me all these challenges that the Export Development Fund was facing for it to have license. Would you have allowed, if this was just any other financial institution, to continue to transact, or it received special favors because it is your baby?
Not exactly. Mike, for example, they've operated for a number of years under the same conditions. These institutions are important for the country, for the economy. But we also appreciate that they have to get over certain challenges, especially with regard to capitalization. That becomes a major issue. So we have to provide waivers in order for them to operate whilst they're building up capacity in so many areas. So the short answer to your question is that we do provide waivers, even to commercial banks, on other issues. The fact that we provide waivers should indicate that those institutions are falling short of the requirement. So as a central bank, we take a position. We look at the market, we look at the institution, and see the value of that institution to the market and to the country. And we say, okay, fine. Given the environment, we think they can proceed to operate, despite the fact that they fall short in A, B, C, D. So yes, we could have provided that type of accommodation. That's the short answer.
Okay, Dr. Banda, as we're speaking now, I think a lot of Malawians are concerned with our borrowing. We are borrowing heavily, and even in this interview, it appears that we'll continue to borrow because we still don't have IMF with this extended credit facility that might allow us also to get access to some money that is sitting with the World Bank and even other partners. Do you see any solution to this? Because if we continue to borrow at the rate we are we not digging a hole that might prove too difficult for us to come out?
Exactly, I agree with you. We cannot continue on that path. Currently, Malawi's debt is unsustainable. To use the term, the debt is too huge. It's having a direct impact on resources that would be available for other important developmental programs. That debt is also having a huge impact on foreign reserves because we have to service foreign debt. So the size of the debt is too huge. We need to go slow, we need to start paying back, or we need to restructure that debt. So the country strategy is not to continue borrowing big time. The country's strategy is now to consolidate its fiscal position. That is, close the gaps, reduce the amount of debt that we have, both in terms of debt service as well as in the stock. So the strategy really for now is for the country to engage the institutions that have lent it money for some restructuring arrangements. We need to restructure that debt. But as we restructure the existing debt, our strategy is not to continue borrowing recklessly. The debt which is currently there is a debt that we all found. This has been in the system for some time. And because it is huge, it does have a life of its own. You have to service it, interest accrues, etc. That is what is making us go through these difficult times. As a strategy, the government is now taking a look at all these things, and they've taken the view that we need to go slow on debt. So there will be consolidation.
If we go slow, are we going to survive in the absence of anything big that is giving us the money? Because I think everybody understands that we can't continue to borrow. But then the question comes, where do we get the funds?
Yeah, but the alternative is for us to borrow and crash. We can borrow, and then there'll come a time when we can't even service that debt because we don't have the capacity to service it. It is better that we go slow now, that we still have some life, rather than to allow this debt to go to levels that are going to lead to a crisis. So we're not yet there yet. But the strategy now is to make sure that, yes, we manage what we have.
A lot of economic experts have said our biggest problem is that we borrow to consume. Mm-hmm. We don't borrow to produce. And we continue to do that even when we realize that this is not taking us anywhere. In actual fact, this is taking us down the drain. You've spoken about us considering exporting products. But even our flagship product that we talk about, the AIP, takes a lot of forex for us to consume, Doctor. When you're giving policy direction, do you sit with these people that are making decisions outside the bank that affect the bank in its discharging its job?
We do engage government. We are part of the team of advisors on national economic issues. We look at all those issues. I take the point you are making that we should not be borrowing for consumption. That is suicidal, and I agree with you entirely. The borrowing that the government should be going into is borrowing that is going to build capacity to produce, capacity to export, and this is currently the focus. For consumption, government has basically said let's cut domestic consumption as much as possible. Currently, I don't want to speak for the Minister of Finance here, but I know that for a fact that for recurrent expenditures and the like, I think those are being made out of domestic taxes. So we're not really, government is not really borrowing in order to support recurrent expenditures. Again, I'm not in Minister of Finance, but I can tell you that that is the strategy. If there's going to be any borrowing, it will be for infrastructural development. Infrastructure is for production. It's essentially to support production. So that is useful borrowing. It has to be contained, though.
You continue to tell me about a strategy that we want to take on board. What has been clear in the past is that we've come up with strategies that we don't implement. How sure are you that the strategy that you're talking about, particularly even to do with the central bank, are going to be implemented for us to get the results that these strategies must give us?
I'm not sure which strategies we are specifically referring to, but whatever we are working on in my time in the central bank is being implemented, and we will make sure that we take it to conclusion. So
no, I was speaking in general, not as a central bank to say Malawians in general. We come up with what might be solutions on a piece of paper, but for them to move from piece of paper to the ground, it's been our problem that we cannot implement it.
A good example, we are trying to grow our exports. We are looking into export growth and diversification. We have put in place EDF to do that. Central Bank is basically monitoring what EDF is doing. We're following whatever they're doing, and they have to come back and report periodically on progress. So we are actually monitoring. We want to make sure that our strategies to grow the export base of this country are actually being implemented. So yes, we are following up on those.
Let's also talk about the volatility of the kwacha against its trading partners. What is it that can be done to make sure that kwacha at least stabilizes against its trading partners, Doctor?
The exchange rate is really a function of supply and demand.
Yes.
If you are in a situation where demand is higher than supply, you find your currency depreciating. This is what we have been seeing in Malawi. Point I made earlier on, that on the supply side, we are constrained. Demand is still high. So that is putting pressure on the exchange rate. That's why you see the exchange rate depreciating. Medium term to long term, our strategy is to increase that supply through export growth and diversification, a point I keep on making. In the short term, we'll try to get some accommodation from regional banks and other institutions to make sure that we've got enough foreign currency to support that. We'll try to avoid a situation where we artificially prop up the exchange rate. Clearly, the exchange rate has to reflect market fundamentals. But the point I'm also making is that you really don't want to see the exchange rate crash overnight. So as a central bank, I think we have a responsibility to ensure that the adjustment of the currency is done properly without causing any disruption. Yes, the issues we are talking about, in economics we refer them as a misalignment of the currency. We are trying to get it properly aligned, looking at the supply of foreign currency vis-a-vis demand.
Are there time frames to this?
This is a dynamic environment, so we are basically adjusting as and when we see the situation on the ground. But we are saying that for the fruits of the current efforts to start showing, definitely we are looking into next year and beyond. As soon as we get a program with the fund, it might help us to slow down the depreciation of the currency. Yeah, so we think this can be done.
Is there hope for Malawi, Doctor? When Malawi look at our economy and say there are so many things that are affecting our economy, is this economy going to grow? Because once it grows, it kickstarts a lot of things. Is there hope for a Malawian watching us, listening to us right now, Doctor?
If there was no hope, I would walk out. I would.
So you're still sitting in that chair?
Yeah, I'll pack my bags and go home. There's a light at the end of a tunnel. I'll pack my bags and go home and say, sorry, there's nothing we can do. I'm very hopeful that this country has got a lot of potential. Yes, we have gone through a difficult year, largely because of COVID. COVID has really affected this economy, but we think that come next year, things should improve. I am hoping that we will not go through another wave of COVID that is going to be devastating. If COVID is contained within Malawi and globally, I think the chances of us making a turnaround and recovering are very good and very strong. I think the efforts that we've put in place to build our exports will bear fruit definitely next year and beyond. So yes, there's a lot of hope in this country.
We're coming to the close of our interview, Doctor, but I would like to give you an opportunity to say there might be something that you want to tell whosoever is watching us from the central bank. So those are the people that are watching us. So if you talk to that camera, you are talking to everyone. I don't know if you've prepared any message for those people.
Well, the message I have really is that the economy is going to make a turnaround. Definitely 2022, we should be seeing a turnaround in the economy. I feel for the many young people that are looking for jobs, roaming the streets of Blantyre, Lilongwe, and Mzuzu, they can't find jobs because the economy is not growing. My prayer is that as we make a turnaround, jobs will be created. So my prayer is that the young men and women coming out of colleges, coming out of so many other institutions of learning, looking for jobs, will at least have something to do. So the growth of the economy is going to be vital, and as a central bank, we are going to play our part. The last point I want to make is that the issue of poverty has been talked about for so many years. We've been talking about poverty reduction, poverty eradication, poverty alleviation, etc., etc. We don't seem to be making a lot of success out of it. We're not seeing that much success out of this. I want that issue to be history. I think my president has said this so many times before, that we need to deal with issues of poverty. And for us in the central bank and together with our colleagues in government would like to see full implementation of Vision 2063 that is going to push Malawi out of our current state into a middle income country within the time frames that have been laid out. That would address issues of poverty. That would also address the issues of unemployment. So as a central bank, we want to play our role in that vision. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Banda. That's Dr. Wilson Banda, Governor of the Reserve Bank of Malawi, bringing us to the end of today's edition of Times Exclusive. My name is Wander Msisia, and I would like also to thank David Masea on the technical side, but also our proud sponsors, that's Rainbow Paints. Until next week, God willing, goodbye.